Agotevach, this is Gemara in Makkos, Daf Yod Tes, and our learning should be an incredible schos refuah shalema for Tinoik ben Miriam Ahuva b'seich shar Chayle Yisrael. We're holding on Yud Ches Beis, and again, one last reminder: we are in the middle of recording the summer Daf Shiurim. Anyone that has any yard sites and the like that would like to partner, please reach out. So we're holding on Yud Ches Beis. We pulled up a little bit early, about 15 lines from the Y lines. The first word on line is Bilas Ma'akeves Boy. And we were in the middle of a little bit of a tangential discussion about Bikurim. And we just finished saying that Rav Elazar is the Shita that says that the reading of Bikurim is not essential and one can bring Bikurim even without it. But says the Gemara, and the truth is, I apologize, this shtickle is really a continuation of the previous Gemara. Apologize that we pulled up early. But says the Gemara, Rav Achar bar Yaakov masni la kid Ravasi. Rav Achar bar Yaakov taught the exact same thing in the name of Ravasi, Amar Rav Yechlan. V'kashalei Rav Yechlan. And because he learned it, b'shem Rav Yechlan, he had a stira within the shita of Rav Yechlan. Does Rav Yechlan really hold that when it comes to Bikurim, it is the hanacha, it is the placement of the Bikurim on the Mizbeach, which is the Ikar, and not the recitation? But Ravasi asked Rav Yechlan, Bikurim me'emasai mutarim likohanim. At what point is Bikurim mutter for the Kehanim to eat it? V'amar lein Rav Yechlan responded, Haru'uyin likriya. Bikurim, that one has to say the parsha Bikurim at the point Misha Kara Aleya, at the point that one actually recites the psukim. But v'shein ru'yin likriya, Misha ra'yin b'nei abayis. So says the Gemara, we have a double stira. Kasha kriya, kasha hanacha. On both angles, there is a stira. Now, just for a moment, look at Rashi. Rashi teaches us a real nikriya. Says Rashi, what does it mean? That means it's a time. If you're between Shavuos and Chag, Shavuos and Sukkot, that's when you read the Parsha Bikurim. So says the Gemara, we have a double stira within Rav Yechlan. Explains the Gemara, kriya loy kasha why harabi shevin harabanan hanocha nami lo kasha Rav Yehuda varabanan. Now the Gemara explains. My Rav Yehuda de Tanya, we learned in a brayso Rav Yehuda Omer, says the Torah, a pasuk in Devarim. Vanachasai, what does it mean in Yusha? Place it zutinufa. This is the waving that Bikurim have a process of hanafa, of wavings, is similar to we wave a lulav, which we know about, but karbanis and the like was a process of a hanafa, of waving. Omer, you tell me zutinufa ino yala hanacha mamish. Maybe refers to the actual placement of the Bikurim on the Mizbeach. Kshoimer, when the pasuk earlier says, V'inichai, and you shall place it, Re'anacha Amar. That blessing is talking about the placement. Ani Makayim, so why does the Torah 3 psukim later tell us, V'anachasai, Zu Tenufa. Uman Tana, and who is this? Tana explains the Gemara. Te'pali Galei Rav Yehuda, Rav Ben Yaakov. The kohen takes the basket from your hands, made on the second wide line. Alabikurim shetun into nufa. Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. Rav ben Yaakov is this opinion that holds that this din of tenufa by the bikurim. Says the Gemara, my time of Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. And what's the reason for Rav ben Yaakov? Asiyad yad mishlamim. Says over here, and the kohen should take the basket from your hands. And the pasuk says, by the karban shlamim yadav tiviana es ishe Hashem, his own hands he brings the fire of Hashem makan kohen avlalan kohen lahalan bailim avkan baalim. How do you have both? It's the kohen and the bailim. How do you have both simultaneously? Explains the Gemara on the last line. Maniach koyin yadav tachas yedei bailim. The bailim hold it, and the koyin places his hand underneath the hand of the bailim umeinif, and they perform hanafa. That's how we're going to answer up the double stira within the shita of Rabbi Yochanan. Says the Gemara, so that really was the wrap-up of the previous, again, apologies that we did not include it in the previous shir. Continues the Gemara on the theme of Bikurim on the last line of Yulchesem Ebis. Amar Rava Barada Amar Rav Yitzchak. Bikurim, when it comes to Bikurim, as we turn over to Yutesa Marayalev, says the Gemara, Me'imasai Mechayavin Alehen. From what point are you chayiv for consuming the bikurim? Says the Gemara, Mishayiru Pnei Abayis, when they see the face, literally, of the Beis Hamikdash, when they enter into the chaser of the Beis Hamikdash. And Rashi says, of course, it's referring to a zar, a non-kohen, that eats the bikurim. So once they see the Pnei Abayis, that's when the obligation and the punishment of Misa happens for a zar that would consume them. Says the Gemara Kiman, who holds this opinion? Ki Aitanya de Tanya. Rabbi Eliezer Aimer Bikurim Miksasan Bachoks O Miksasan Bifnim. If Bikurim are part outside the Chatzar and part inside the Chatzar, they're sitting right in between on the entrance to the Beis HaMikdash. So some of the basket is inside, some of the basket is outside. Shabachot, that which is outside of Reheim Kechul in the Chol Devrayam, they're absolutely unequivocally Chulin, says the Gemara, Shebifnim, that which is inside, meaning it's sitting on the threshold, that which is inside. Harein kaktish chol devrayim, they're fully actish. And therefore, what do we see? We see that according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, that once it enters in, Mishayiru Pnei Abayis, it has the din of hektish that a Yisrael cannot eat them. Amar Rav Shishas, another din, 6 lines down. The placement is essential, whereas like the following Tanya, the Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Yosi Omer teaches Rabbi Yosi Shleisha Devarim, 3 things, Misham Shleisha Zikainim, says Rabbi Yosi, 3 things in the name of 3 Zikainim. On the top, Rashi says that we're learning one of these 3 things. Rabbi Yishmael Omer teaches Rabbi Yishmael, Yochel, I would think Yala Adam Meiser Sheni, Bizman Azabi Yerushalayim V'Yochalen. I would have thought that a person should bring his Meiser Sheni even nowadays, even when there's no Beis HaMikdash. I would think you have to bring your Meiser Sheni to Yerushalayim and eat it there. And Rashi says, what would the Hava Amina been? Kasavar Kedusha Za'aretz Loi Bala. That the Kedusha is still there, and then we have to mafresh the Maestris. And I would think you have to bring it and eat it in Yerushalayim without redeeming it. Vidinu, and explains the Gemara, in reality, this makes sense. Bechar, when it comes to Bechar, Tan Avas Makoim, or Meiser Sheni, Tan Avas Makoim, both the Bechar and a Meiser Sheni have to be brought to Yerushalayim and eat it there. Ma Bechar, Einu Ela B'fnei Abayis, Av Meiser Einu Ela B'fnei Abayis, says the Gemara. But just like a Bechar is only when there is a Beis HaMikdash, so too when it comes to Meiser. However, the problem is, Malu Bechar, Shkeitan Matan Damim. There's a din by Bechar, you have to place the blood, Ve'murin, and you have to place the parts of the animal like Mizbeach. Whereas Bikurim, you don't have to, that they don't have to be placed in those. There's no din of Matan Damim on the Mizbeach. But Malu Bekurim, Shkeitan Hanacha, that has to be placed there. It's different din. Tamalaymar, so says the Gemara, V'achalta sham lefnei Hashem Elokecha, you should eat it there in front of Hashem your God. Makish Meiser lebechar. From that pasuk we have a hekish that we're equating Meiser to bechar. That what ma becharin lefnei Abayis, just like the din of bechar is lefnei Abayis only when there's a Beis HaMikdash. Av meiser eino yela livnei habayis. And therefore, the halacha is that since there is no Beis Hamikdash, unfortunately, meiser sheni does not have to be brought and is not consumed in Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara, Ve'em Isa. Now, why do we bring this price? We brought this price because we're trying to figure out who is the Shita that holds that whether the Hanacha or the Kriya, which one of them is an integral ingredient when it comes to Bikurim. So says the Gemara, Ve'em Isa, if Rabbi Yishmael was of the opinion that reading the Parshas Bikurim was integral, Lifroich, then we could ask, Mali Bikurim shkein te'unin Kriya. There's another din about Bikurim that it needs to be read. Ve'hanacha. The fact that it does not say that shows us that Rabbi Yishmael clearly does not hold that the Kriya of the Parsha Bikurim is integral. Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi, no. Nehi, very good. Dikuvaleka, maskim. You're right. You have a raya shitas Rabbi Yishmael, but you know your raya is just that it's not liikuva. However, mitzvah mileka. Is there not a mitzvah? Of course there's a mitzvah to have the kriya of the Parshas Bikurim. And therefore I can have the same kasha v'leka v'leima mitzvah v'lifroich. Why don't we say that the mitzvah of the reading the Parshas Bikurim should be a pircha? So says the Gemara, you're right. Ella Amar Rav Ashi, we have to explain Shittas Rabbi Yishmael a little bit differently. When it comes to the din of Bikurei Hager, the Bikurim of a ger, that what does he have to say? A ger, of course, can't say Lavoiseinu, wasn't his forefathers. He converted to the faith. And therefore, Rabbi Yishmael, a fascinating territory of Ashi, Rabbi Yishmael cannot say that the Kriya of the Parsha Bikurim is an absolute Lamaila and Pircha, because it's not. Because there are times that you don't have to say it, and that's why such was not brought in the Shita of Rabbi Yishmael. So says the Gemara, V'liheder, ask the Gemara, we just said that Rabbi Yishmael said that Meiser Sheni cannot be learnt out from Bachar or Bikurim, because each one has a Maila over Bikurim. Each one has something that Meiser Sheni does not. But says the Gemara, is that really true? So the Gemara asks, classically, the next step of the previous sugya, we have three entities. We have Bikurim, we have Meiser Sheni, and we have Bechar. So very good, Bechar and Bikurim each have a Maila that Meiser Sheni does not. So say a classical Ma'atzad, that these two have a Maila, so it should still be able to learn out Meiser Sheni. Answers the Gemara, you know why not? Because we could ask, we could ask that each of them have a tzad mizbeach, both Bikurim and Bachar, whereas Meiser Sheni does not, and therefore that would answer up the ma hatzad. Says the Gemara, Makkos. Okay, so what the Maisa does Rabbi Yishmael hold, and therefore he has to bring a chilik between Bachar and Meiser Sheni. Again, how did the whole singing begin? The Yishmael is coming along and trying to prove that Meiser Sheni does not have to be brought and eaten nowadays B'Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara. So, and we'll just scroll up for a moment and we'll look at that tab Rashi that Rashi taught us. That the Havamina was that there's Kedusha to Eretz Yisrael Loi Bala. And that detail the Gemara now hones in on. Says the Gemara, wait, what does Rabbi Yishmael really hold? If he holds rough 15 lines at the bottom. First one line is Kedusha. Kedusha Vishayna Kitcha L'Shaita. V'Kitcha L'Asilavai. If Rabbi Yishmael is of the opinion that the original Kedusha never disappeared, Afilu B'char Nami, then everything should have to be brought to Yerushalayim, not just Meiser Sheni. And he goes over then what? Avilu b'char nami tibai. So says the Gemara, whichever way you twist it, we have a problem. Noch, if you hold there really is Kedusha, then Lamaisa, why doesn't Bechar have to be brought to Yerushalayim? And if not, then we should ask from Bechar that what? Are you allowed to eat the Bechar Bechlal nowadays? Because it never was matir. So Amar Ravina, I'll tell you what Rabbi Shmuel holds. Loi lami lines for the bottom kasavar kitchen aita v'loi kitchen lasalavai. That Yerushalayim got kedusha for only that time and was not forever. V'hacha b'bachar shenitzrak damai kaidem chorban abayis. And what's the shaila in a very unique tunnel-visioned case? A bechar that the dam was sprinkled before the chorban. V'charav abayis. Then the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. V'adayin b'Yisrael kayom. And the blood, and the basar of that bechar was still around. So we have a shaila on that one carbon. What do you do with it? And therefore, what does Rabbi Yishmael hold? Umakshin on bisar l'damai. Ma damai b'mizbeach, avasar b'mizbeach. Umakish, and as well, Meiser le bechar, and that's where Rabbi Yishmael learns out that just like you cannot eat the basar of the bechar because there's no Beis Hamikdash, so too Meiser Sheni cannot be eaten. Says the Gemara, wait. Chidavar alamed behekish chayzer umelamed behekish. Says the Gemara, something here doesn't make sense. The same thing that you're being learned from can't be learned to. It can't go both ways. The whole thing is coming from Meiser, from Bechar. And that's going to turn around. That itself is going to teach us the same din. Answers the Gemara, Meiser, Dagin, Chulin, Hu. Meiser of grain, Meiser Sheni is Chulin. And therefore, in any case, Hudi has to be allowed. Look at Rashi for a moment before we turn over. V'chidavar alamid behekish min adam. Chayzer melamed ala meiser behekish. Hakaim lam bizvachim. Our introduction to Kodshim that we're going to get to soon enough, believe it or not, that we're going to learn over there in Ezel Mekayman, says Rashi, Shein Lomdin b'Kodshim loma min alami. This is a Kodshim dika kasha. So answers the Gemara, guess what? Meiser is not Kodshim. It's Chulanu. And therefore there's no problem learning it from the other. Turns over to Yetesem Beis and says the Gemara, 1 second. This detail is not conclusive. However, that's a debatable point. What are you going to say? Answers the Gemara, Dam ubasar, chada milsahi, blood and meat are one and the same. The blood of the bechar and its meat, which it goes back to the original hekish, are two details in the same item, and therefore the hekish does not teach us somewhere else, but rather it's within itself. Therefore, even the filashita will yes be able to learn it out. And we continue quoting from the Mishnah, Kachim, if you eat it chutz l'chaima, or Kache kalim meiser sheni outside the walls. Asks the Gemara, not asks the Gemara, says the Gemara, Tanina Chadazim. We learned one time, going back a few daf, Meiser Sheni v'hektish shaloi niftu. Those were also included in items that one gets Makkos. So ask the Gemara, why are we repeating it? Kachim, they were eating outside. Meiser Sheni v'hektish shaloi niftu. We already learned that. Amar Rav Yisrael Rav Chanina, Seifa b'meiser Sheni tar v'gavra tar. In the Sefer, everyone is tar. But the problem is, Reisha is b'meiser Sheni tamei v'gavra tamei k'achalei b'Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara, and that's where the two cases come from. Ask the Gemara, how do we know that if you eat Meiser Sheni when you're Tameh, you're Chayim Malchus? Titania, we learned in a brayse of Shemina, says the Torah by Meiser Sheni, I didn't consume any of it while I was tamei. Bein shani tamei vutar, bein shani tar vutamei. On both of them, it would be an iser vechan muzar lachila ina yodeya. Says the Gemara, we do not know where the azhara is going to be from. But I ask Gemara, what do you mean ina yodeya? Thomas Agov be'ed yoksiv. Thomas Agov, the fact that you can't eat a carbon when you are tamei, that is explicit. Says the Torah. Never shasiga by v'tamei adar v'lo yicham and akachem v'gaimer. Ela Thomas atzmai minayin. Says the Gemara. So rather, you know what the Brisa meant to say? The Azhara against eating Meiser Sheni, when Thomas Atzmoy, when the Meiser Sheni is Tamei, and the person is Tar, that we do not know. Talmud Loimar says, excuse me, or Talmud Loimar, different Gersais, Lo Yisucha Lecho B'Sharecha, Ulalanu Oimer, B'Sharecha Teichalenu Atami Vatar. V'tanya. So what do we learn out? We're not worried. And yet, the Kamer Achmana says the Torah, Heyich Tamei Dishrai Loch Gabitar Asam. That a Tamei person with a Tar person, what I said it is Mutter, Hacha over here. Lo yiseichel avira ma'isasheni, you should not eat, and that's going to be our mikar. Continues the Gemara and really wraps up the Gemara. We're 15 lines from the wide lines. First line is Menelon. Asks the Gemara, Menelon devar pediyahu. Where do we know that Meiser Sheni said in the Mishnah? Shaloi niftu. Ask the Gemara, where do we know that it could be redeemed bechlal? Answers the Gemara, Damar Avalazar, Minayim Meiser Sheni Shenitma Shapoidin Isai. Afilu b'Yushalayim Tamalei Mar Kiloi Suchal Seisai. Because you are unable, Seisai. What does Seisai mean? Ve'in Seisai la'achilo shenemar va'yisa ma'asois me'is banav. And therefore, that's what we learn, that there is a idea, a concept of being paida Meiser Sheni. Continues the Gemara. Amaravi bi Amaravasi Minayin the Meiser Sheni Shatar Shapoidin Asafilu Bivsia Achas Chutz L'Chayma. Ask the Gemara, how do you know Meiser Sheni that's tar? Do you allow to redeem it even if it's one step outside of Yerushalayim? Shenemar Kilosuchal Zeisai. Haimi Baile L'Chrav Lazar. We just needed that. And Kain Lema Kar Lo Yisuchal La'Oichlai Meiser Esai. Ask the Gemara, okay, Ve'ima Kulai Lachudas. Maybe you need the whole thing for Rav Lazar's din. Answers the Gemara, Kinlei Makolo Sucha Litzloi Maisa Esai Shema Mina Tarti. We can learn both entities. And we'll conclude. It says the Gemara, Yosef Rav Chanina, 2 lines in the white lines, Rav Haishia, and they were asking, Apischad Yerushalayim Al. We just said if it was one step outside of Yerushalayim, it has not yet entered into Yerushalayim. But what if it's at the entrance? It's already on the way in. It's crossing over the threshold. It's about to cross the plain. Now, says the Gemara, Pshita, what's the Shaila? Hu ba'achotz, u'ba'so b'fnim, kol to mechitzas. If he's outside but the package is inside, then the mechitzas pull it in. Hu b'fnim, u'ba'so b'achotz, ma'hu, that's the Shaila. Tana lehu, ahu saba. So answers the Gemara, the elderly person, b'dvei Rashbi answered, Ki yerchak mimcha makoim. From here we learn out mi lu'acha, from your fullness, which includes that which you're holding, and therefore if either you or the Meiser Sheni is inside of Yerushalayim, that will be enough to say that it will be koiled by the walls. Stop here, we'll pick it up from here. B'siyata d'ishmaya.